Today we're going to show you how to install HB Industries reduced weight safety selector springs into an B&T lower receiver. B&T uses this model lower receiver and several other firearms. This particular lower is from an APC model, but again, this same lower receiver is used in several different platforms and across many different types of firearms. So please consult our website for exact fitment on your particular B&T model. Reasons for replacing your safety selector springs with reduced weight safety selector springs would be if you find your safety selectors are kind of like stiff or difficult to operate from the factory. Our reduced weight our reduced weight safety selector springs are about 30%, 35% lighter than the factory springs. So let's go ahead and replace these ones. The only tools that you're going to need are a couple. We like to use tweezers. You could also use like thin needle nose pliers, but a lot of the parts are pretty small, so tweezers make good tools for this. So with the lower receiver removed, go ahead and set the hammer back onto the sear and let the hammer stay back for this installation. First thing to do, remove the right side safety selector bar. To do that, depress the detent in the center of the safety selector bar and slide it up towards the top surface of the lower receiver. As you're sliding it up, you're going to eventually expose the detent beneath it that we just depressed in the center. So we recommend you cover it with your finger or a bag or a tool to keep the detent from flying out. So go ahead and cover the detent and slide your safety selector lever up until it contacts the little cutout in the top side of the frame. And then you can just remove the safety selector. Next thing, remove the detent cap and the detent spring. Just kind of set them aside. The next thing is going to be to kind of try to get the safety selector, the crossbar, out of the lower receiver. You can kind of see there's two little half moon shaped cutouts in the lower receiver. Each of those contains, beneath the selector bar in those same locations, contains a detent and a spring-loaded detent. So there are two detents on the safety selector crossbar, two springs, and one left, one right. And the semicircles help you identify where they are located. So the main point to make there is we want to kind of cover those areas and make sure we don't lose springs or detents as we're removing the safety selector crossbar. To get the crossbar out, we're going to position the safety selector kind of between the safe and fire position. On fire, it's on a detent, and in the safe position, it's on a detent. Between the two, if you can kind of park it in the middle here, there is no detent engaged, so it allows us to push the safety selector bar through the lower receiver. So go ahead and kind of, with the safety selector in between safe and fire, start moving the crossbar through the lower receiver. We're going to, I don't know if you can see it, there's one of the detents is slightly exposed. We're going to cover it with our finger and remove the crossbar all the way. And so now you can kind of see down here, this is one of the detents. And there's another one still underneath the crossbar. So we'll keep doing the same motion, kind of twist between safe and fire, and completely remove this safety selector crossbar. And once that is done, it exposes the, again, a left and a right side detent. So we're going to use our tweezers and kind of just reach in there and remove each detent, the left and the right, and here you can see there's a spring with it. And let's go ahead and do the right side, and got lucky again, the springs in the detent cap. Not every time the springs will be retained. There's a little bit of grease in the bottom of the detent cap that helps the factory spring stay in there. So we're gonna replace the two factory springs with the reduced weight HB Industries springs. The easiest way to tell them apart, the HBI springs have a fewer coils. See if we can show them side by side here. So the HB Industries ones here in the tweezers have a fewer number of coils and they're slightly shorter in overall length. The HB Industries springs are also slightly bigger on the diameter. So where the factory springs might slip out and bounce around on your workbench, the HBI springs actually are a little bit larger, and when you install them into the detent cups, they should self-retain. And another kind of thing while we're looking at them, these detents themselves are not round, they're kind of oval or oblong shaped. I don't know if you can see that. They only go back in one way, so the actual detent portion of the cap is always going to be oriented in the right location. They were very clever and they made the holes oval. So let's go ahead and replace both of our detent springs with the new HBI reduced weight detent springs. We like to keep our factory springs in the baggies just for future use if you ever want them. And we'll set those aside. And then we're going to drop the new springs down into the pockets in the lower receiver. So dropped one in, and let's do the second one with the tweezers. So just kind of lower it into position and drop it back into the pocket. And again, the pockets are oval, the detents are oval, so they really only goes together one way. And installation of the safety crossbar is the same as the removal. We're going to start on the left side and spin the selector up and over the first detent. And again, going kind of between the, I don't know if you can see it, kind of between the fire and safe position. Maybe like that. Kind of rock it back in place. And when you're, when you're between the two, there is no detent engaged. So you can kind of, that's the key. Keep it between safe and fire and just kind of rock it back and forth, and up and over the selector detents. So let's do this right side detent and kind of between safe and fire, and you'll hear it. There's an audible click when it goes back into position. Kind of hear it. So with the safety crossbar reinstalled, go ahead and flip the safety into the fire position, and we're going to reinstall our right side safety selector. First, we're going to drop the detent spring back into the pocket, and then put our detent cap back on top of the spring. With the detent cap in place, we can slide our safety selector back onto the crossbar, kind of get it started, and then depress the detent and slide the safety selector over the right side of the lever. And with the selector back in place, we are complete. So we've just reduced the force needed to engage and disengage our safety selector by about 30% by replacing those two springs. Yeah, so reinstall and go to the range and have fun.